This is TWiT.
Yeah, so I thought we could go back to the opening day and kind of step through some of the announcements that occurred. One of them is kind of personal for you because you've written a lot about this in the past, but Harman-Kardon on the eve of build announced the very first Cortana-powered smart speaker. And then on day 0 or day 1 of build, Microsoft announced that Intel was going to build a reference platform that other device makers could build. And I think that might be all of it. We don't know anything about other Cortana speakers yet, do we?
Correct. We know that there's Intel reference. We know that HP is going to build it. And Harman-Kardon is the only one who's actually shown hardware. And that's really all that we know right now. It's coming this fall. And we don't have a price point, I don't believe.
No, but we know it's U.S. only, which has bummed out a lot of people.
Oh, the other thing, too, is you can use it with an iOS device. So that was, I think, in the footnote. Right. You don't actually, if you have a Mac, you could actually buy one of these.
That's right. Yeah. Well, so you need to have Cortana, right? I think that's the key, and that explains the U.S. only bit. Cortana is sadly still fairly limited. I know it's not only in the U.S., but it works best in the U.S. by far, and that's a situation Microsoft needs to kind of figure out, but has not done so far.
No.
You got Visual Studio 2017 for Mac available. That's the old Xamarin Studio. The big news on day 1 to me was 500 million Windows 10 active devices. So this is a good number, bad number. Survey says.
I think it's good, actually. I think, we already knew that growth wasn't going to stay at the clip it was at the beginning when they were giving it away for free.
Yep.
But now I think it's stabilizing and but still growing, So I think it's respectable to be at 500 million active. Is it active monthly devices?
Piece devices, yeah, active devices, yeah.
Right, right now. So let's see if they can keep that momentum going. I think.
So I want to qualify that statement just with my one thought. I agree that it is a good number. What we don't know is how many businesses have moved to Windows 10.
Right.
If that's 500 million, that's mostly consumer. That's a great number. But if that's 500 million and 200 million of them are businesses, that's not such a great number because Microsoft keeps telling us that they expect Windows 10 will just start growing real quickly as companies with 100,000 machines go fire up Windows 10. So if it could be a very, very good number.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say to that if Microsoft saw an appreciable uptick in commercial, they would have said that number. I think they tend to pull those things out, but I will, because I do this kind of math. I'm terrible at math, unlike you, but I do this kind of math every time they announce a number. I look at the number of months and I compare it to how Windows 7 did, which is kind of the benchmark or the bellwether. And the interesting thing there is, over time, every time that they've announced a figure for Windows 10, the average numbers of new devices coming online each month has gone down. Early on, it was 30-something million a month. It was 20-something million a month, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 12 or 14 million a month now. Windows 7 achieved 20 million units per month over its entire 3-year lifespan. But that was artificial. The interesting thing is, if you do the math on 20 million per month, and you look at 2 years of Windows 7, you're talking about 480 million licenses sold. Well, 500 million in less than 2 years is a bigger number, and it took them less time to get there. And so ultimately, I know there are all these caveats to this. I know that Windows 7 probably was higher, that they were in fact holding licenses back so they could pad future months. That's the type of accounting they did. There's no doubt about that. But still, and of course, they had the 1 billion promise that is nowhere close to being met. But 500 million is 500 million. And it says something about our world that we're looking at a number like 500 million and criticizing it, right? And I don't mean us. I don't mean the three of us. I mean everybody, right?
Sure.
This should have been a much bigger news story than it was. That's an enormous number for a platform that is supposedly dying, for a product that nobody supposedly wants. I mean, it's very interesting.
I mean, and for a platform that really people don't have to adopt if they're on Windows 7 till 2020.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah, and even for consumers, when you buy a PC, that thing lasts for a long time. I mean, most people are not going to upgrade to Windows 10, even if it's free, and clearly haven't, I guess, in some cases. But you use that thing until you can't. And I think there's upside. I think business upside is going to drive it in the future, and I think the natural life cycle of these devices will drive it in the future. That we just haven't hit that point yet.